I want to share with you about the anatomy of a transformation. So there's 10 steps in the anatomy of a transformation, but I chunk them down into 3 stages, okay? So I want to talk about the first stage. The first stage of the anatomy of a transformation is commitment. Commitment. Now that word can feel heavy or it can feel really exciting, but the first stage is we have to be committed to making a change. It's Retreat and Grow Rich, the podcast. I'm Darla LeDoux, best-selling author, coach, and retreat leader, and I'm on a mission to normalize transformation on the planet, one intimate retreat at a time. This show's dedicated to the coaches, consultants, healers, leaders, and light workers who are here to hold space for the truth that transforms lives and get paid for it. Expert retreat and business tips, strategies, stories, and magic. It's your weekly mini retreat delivered right to your ears. Let's do this. Hello and welcome. I'm Darla LeDoux. I am the founder of Aligned Entrepreneurs and author of Retreat and Grow Rich. I'm so excited that you're here for the Aligned Entrepreneurs podcast. Today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, delivering transformation. So to put this in context, I just want to share a little bit about me and my background and why this topic is so important from a particular standpoint of what it means to deliver transformation. So I am a business coach. Today I work with primarily transformational leaders who want to incorporate small retreats into the way they work so they can get deeper results with their clients, and really leverage their time, make great money, and place value where it belongs in their work, which is on the work of transformation. So when I got into business and I got trained as a coach and I knew I loved the work of transformation, it is the thing that has made all the difference in my life. And I'll share a little bit about that in a minute. I got into taking courses and learning how to run a coaching business, and which became learning how to run an information marketing business and all the tools and techniques to market yourself online and sell information. And so as I was kind of like diving down this tunnel to figure out how to bundle and package my work and sell information, I really felt like my heart had gotten lost because my passion was for the work of transformation. And I had to take a step back and say, you know, every coach, mentor or a lot of the people I was listening to were saying, you can't sell mindset, you can't sell transformation. I kept hearing the phrase, sell them what they want, give them what they need. And maybe you've heard that too. But something in me said, you know what? People want this. I wanted it. I knew that everything I'd invested in, and to date I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in my business, was for cultivating the right mindset and the right energy and for the work of my own transformation. So I knew it wasn't the truth. And I had to look within, and I went to work for myself on determining how do I actually market and sell this work of transformation that's so near and dear to my heart. And I actually talk about that in one of our other episodes on selling transformation. In this episode, I want to talk to you about delivering the work of transformation and what it actually is, and how can you market an outcome, a transformational outcome, and know deep down in your bones that you can actually deliver on that because you're really an expert at the work of transformation. Okay? So before we can do that, it feels really important to distinguish what transformation is and what transformation isn't. So what transformation is, for me, is making a permanent shift in how we show up and interact with the world. This means that we actually shift our energy, and I talk about energy alignment in episode 1. We shift our energy such that how we show up, how we behave, our habits and practices, how we interact with the world, the energy we put out in the world is different. And what that does is it creates the space for new possibilities that we never knew existed from the old energy field. And that is the work of transformation. What transformation is not is it is not affirmations, it is not mantras, it's not positive thinking, it's not giving good advice. Okay, those things are all great and they might be part of the tools in the toolkit for a transformational leader. But in and of themselves, they are not transformation. And in fact, a lot of these things like affirmations and even the way a lot of people talk about the law of attraction, to me is actually detrimental to the work of transformation because people say, I tried that and it didn't work, right? I looked in the mirror and I said my affirmation every morning and it didn't work. Well, guess what? Without the work of transformation, which is digging deep and shifting beliefs at the core, all the affirmation is going to do is remind you of your problem, right? So if you say, I am confident, and your subconscious mind, which is what we deal with in the work of transformation, is saying, yeah, that's bullshit, then every time you say it, you're actually just reinforcing the old pattern. So this is why affirmations don't really work. It is not giving good advice. How many times have you ever had someone give you advice that's just great advice, but it really wasn't welcome, right? You just weren't interested in knowing their opinion about what you should do in your life, right? And on the flip side, how many times have you given good advice and had it not be received, right? Like someone's struggling with something and you know exactly what they need to do to make the change in their life. You know. You're intuitive, you're insightful, you're wise. You wouldn't be listening to this if you weren't. You know what they need, but when you give them that valuable, juicy advice, you can see their mind go blank and you can feel their resistance come up. And you know that that advice just didn't land because they weren't ready to receive it. And this is a huge issue that I see out there all the time. People kind of shooting on one another rather than understanding how transformation works and giving your substance where it can do most good. There's nothing that feels more draining or almost dirty in a way than giving like this beautiful advice to someone who's not receiving it. So we don't want to do that. We want to really understand what I call the anatomy of a transformation. And I'm going to teach you that today. When you really understand that, you can give your substance where it can do most good because you really know how to tune in to where an individual is and where a group is in their own journey of transformation. And the reason I say where a group is because so many of the people I work with love leading retreats. They love leading intimate groups in a journey of transformation. So this is going to be so helpful for you. Now, one of the things that I've learned, and I teach this to my retreat leaders, is often we learn best by story. And we can feel what transformation feels like in a story. So I'm going to share a little story with you, and then I'll walk you through the 3 stages, which amount to 10 steps of an anatomy of a transformation. Okay? So when I started my business, or let's take us back to well before I started my business. And I was in a job that I didn't really love. I'm an engineer by training. I had worked as an engineer for quite some time. I became aware of the world of coaching and I knew I loved it. I knew deep down that I wanted to be a coach, but I just wasn't willing to take the leap. I was afraid. I didn't know how to market myself. I didn't think anybody would pay for this thing that I just thought was important. But I knew from that initial coach training in corporate that this work of transformation would change the world. I knew it deep down. And if you think about it, you probably have some version of that brought you to whatever you're doing today that has you listening here. where you heard something, you were exposed to an idea, or you had an experience of your own transformation where you went, if everybody in the world got this, the world would be a whole different place. So I had one of those moments, and it was around this work of transformation. So I was trained as a coach in corporate, and it actually caused me to leave my job, and I became a high school teacher. And I was too afraid to start my business, so I thought, I'll just sneak in coaching on the students. I taught ninth grade. And I did that for a couple of years, and I really missed the creativity of business and the feeling like you're building something. And so I went back into corporate, and I was in this corporate job. I was in a marketing position, and I was just really bored. I knew a lot about what lit me up at this point, what my mission was. And I kept trying to fit myself into the company's mission. And it was feeling very uncomfortable. So I was cycling back to this idea of becoming a coach and starting a business. And I'd been through this cycle several times, and maybe you relate to this. So this is what happens when we don't transform, is we just keep going through this cycle of imagining what could be possible, having a sense of what we want, but then we bump up against resistance somewhere. And for me, the resistance could look like any random human asking me how I was going to make money in this new career. And then we stop. That's what we typically do if we don't transform it. So here I am. I'm in this corporate job. Life is uncomfortable. I don't love it. I know there's something more for me, and I just can't seem to pull the trigger. Okay. Have you been there? I'm curious. And then something happened that changed my life forever. The first thing that happened is I got divorced. I actually got married and divorced within a year. And the marriage itself was really rocky. Okay. It was not a good match. I now can think of it as my ego or my subconscious mind or my comfort zone found this perfect person to match with to keep me safe and stuck. And I had gotten married, and within a very short period of time, this person revealed himself to me to not be the right partner. Okay, so I was in the process of getting divorced, and at the same time, my stepdad was diagnosed with cancer. And he died 3 months later, which was right about the same time that I was meeting with my divorce attorney. Okay, and so in this process, my life really fell apart. I didn't know who I was anymore, right? And the only thing I had that was consistent was this job that I really didn't love. And it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I failed at marriage. I experienced my first loss of someone really close to me. My stepdad had actually played such a huge role in my life and who I am. And things were just falling apart. And the reason it was the best thing that ever happened to me lies in the anatomy of a transformation I'm going to teach you. Because with all of this happening, I let myself surrender. I got committed to making a change in my life, and I really let myself surrender. Prior to that, I thought, like, I could figure life out. I could muscle my way through it. I was smart, right? I'm an engineer. I had this identity of being smart, and I was always the one to take care of things, right? And I had established this pattern early on in my life. And so I knew I could handle anything, right? I got this. Whatever it is, I got this. I'm smart. I'm together. I got this. I don't need anyone. I don't need anything. Well, going through this experience, it cracked me. It cracked me open. And I was able to surrender, and I was able to see some new truths that prior to that I couldn't see. So there were two truths that I was able to see. One is that I actually didn't have it all together and figured out. This might be shocking, right? But failing at my marriage really helped me to see not only did I not have it all together, but that I actually didn't have to, and that actually nobody did. So that was the first thing that I was able to see. And the second thing I was able to see is that I actually needed some support, that I wasn't invincible, that I wasn't this human that could go through everything, on my own. And I began to seek support. And in that place, I was able to create the possibility of being a failure, of letting people down, of putting myself first, and of asking for help. And those things are actually what made it possible for me to start a business. Because in the old way of being the smart one who handles everything for everyone and has it all together, I could have never created what I've created today. I needed to know how to ask for support, just like I needed to know how to ask for money as a salesperson, which we cover in one of our other pillar episodes. I needed that experience in order for it to be possible to be who I am today. But in the moment, it really didn't feel great. So this work of transformation and the work that I'm about, the work of normalizing transformation on the planet, is key to creating new possibilities and being the fullest expression of who we are on the planet. See, if I had continued to operate in that old way, I would have never gotten to know these rich and beautiful parts of myself that are vulnerable, that ask for help, that give and receive love in a very deep way. Those parts of me were inaccessible before the transformation. And the other thing that I need to share is the transformation was very messy. It was very messy, right? From the outside, it looked like I had been wronged, I had been victimized, I married this jerk, and anybody would have agreed that it was his fault, I was the victim, poor me, all of this stuff, right? But in the place of surrender, I could actually see and own that my old patterns had just attracted this in, right? And there's nothing wrong with me, and I'm not broken. I just needed a transformation. I needed a shift in order to go to the next level and start attracting different things into my world. And I could really see it and own it and love myself through it. And that's the world I want us to live in. When someone's getting divorced, it's not like this horrible thing that someone has to be blamed for and that we have to feel bad about, but it's actually a vehicle for our growth and transformation, and that we can celebrate the learning of it. Imagine that world, right? If you imagine the ripple effect of that world where moving through your process of growth and the uncomfortability and the mistakes and really seeing those mistakes as gifts, if we lived in that world, it would be a whole different place. So with that, I want to share with you about the anatomy of a transformation. So there's 10 steps in the anatomy of a transformation, but I chunk them down into 3 stages, okay? So I want to talk about the first stage. The first stage of the anatomy of a transformation is commitment. Commitment. Now, that word can feel heavy or it can feel really exciting. But the first stage is we have to be committed to making a change. So I want to just talk with you about the steps in this stage. So step 1 of the anatomy of a transformation is discomfort, actually. So we don't transform something, we don't shift a pattern, we don't create new possibilities in our life when we're comfortable. We just don't. And sometimes, when I've worked with entrepreneurs in the past who are really comfortable, like they're making good money and, nothing is terribly broken, a lot of times they're the hardest to work with because they're comfortable in the discomfort. Okay. And if you think about it as human beings, we can be very comfortable with a lot of discomfort. In other words, I got like some extra inches here. My pants are too tight. My money flow is not quite how I'd like, but I'm getting by. Maybe my relationship kind of is annoying, but it's not terrible. Like we are really good at living in discomfort. Okay. So this is the first stage, and we can stay in this first step of discomfort for a long time. The second step of the anatomy of a transformation is desire. So here's what I find happens. And by the way, step 1 and 2 can happen in opposite order. But what I find happens is we're going through life and we've got this discomfort. There are things that maybe aren't working or that we're not happy with, but we're kind of like, just ignoring it and going on our way. And then we see something we desire. And we get connected with a desire that's greater than our fear of change. This is my belief, is that the desire catapults the transformation more often than the discomfort. Now, it's not always the case, but it's a common notion that that pain motivates us more than desire. And I choose to believe desire actually motivates us more. Desire for something else amplifies the pain of where we are, or the discomfort of where we are. So, you're going through life and you're feeling like, okay, it's okay that like my pants don't fit, for example. And then you go to an event and you see someone speaking on stage and you get that click, that hit, that desire. I want to be like that. I want to be on that stage. And now all of a sudden, not that you can't speak on stage exactly as you are, but for some people, that might be the thing that causes the desire to lose weight, right? Or causes you to be present to the discomfort of how you feel in your clothes. You go, well, I either need a new wardrobe for stage or I need to fit into my old wardrobe, right? So when that desire kicks in and that gap between the discomfort and the desire becomes greater than your fear of being seen, your fear of doing what it takes, then we get to step 3, which is commitment. So only when that desire to shift is greater than the fear, that we actually commit. Okay. So as an entrepreneur, your marketing, and you've probably learned this, is highlighting the discomfort of where they are, the pain, right? And the desire that they actually want, or the benefits of working with you. We're taught that, right? Our marketing highlights this gap. And so often it's being exposed to your marketing that actually moves someone from the desire to the commitment, where they go, oh, I actually want that. And here's an opportunity to commit to having that by putting my credit card down, right? Now, commitment doesn't always have to come with financial commitment, but financial commitment is an amazing way for your client to say, yes, I am committed to going on this journey of transformation. Because by the way, the journey, again, it can be messy. A lot of times it's not all rainbows and butterflies. So we want to be committed. So often, I work with a lot of retreat leaders. When someone clicks and buys and registers, or has a conversation with you and registers for your retreat, they're putting this commitment out into the world that they're ready to transform, that they're ready to shift the pattern that's keeping them from getting all of these results. Okay, so that's the first stage, the commitment stage. Discomfort, desire, commitment. And commitment is like, I'm not going back, right? It's not an option to go back to my comfort zone. Once I commit, I've committed, okay? It's not just thinking about and daydreaming, it's a commitment. And for me, often that comes with a financial commitment. But it could come with a commitment of my word, or it could come with actually scheduling something in my calendar saying, hey, I'm making room for this commitment. But commitment is necessary. Without commitment, what happens is you're giving your substance and the person doesn't actually receive it. They're not ready to make change. Or if you're in a place where you desire something but you haven't committed, that's the hardest for people to be around. They're giving you good advice. They're telling you how awesome you are, how possible your thing is. And it's just like, pouring it into a hole because you're not actually committed to moving forward. So once you commit, now you move into this second stage of the anatomy of a transformation. And this is steps 4 through 8. Okay. And the second stage is the stage of actually transforming. I call it the shift. Okay. So in this stage, you've committed. It's kind of like you've gone click, 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 click up the top of the roller coaster. And here you are. You are like committed to the ride, right? There's no getting off at this point. So here's what happens next. This is important. So you've committed to your transformation. The next step is surrender. It's surrender. So you commit, you create this container. This is what I teach, right? Retreats and retreat-based programs are often containers of support for this transformation. So you've committed to the transformation. You've got the container. Now your job is to surrender. This is where you get really real with yourself and you say, I don't know what the new possibility is. I don't know how to be different. I don't know how to fix this or change this. Transformation is not fixing and changing, by the way. But what I do know is that I don't know, right? Like that Einstein quote about crazy is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So when we surrender, we actually say, I get that my ways haven't been working. For me, it looks like this. Okay. Whatever I've been doing, Spirit, has not worked. I surrender, right? And often in the world of transformation, this could be surrendering to a coach or a mentor who's been there, done that, and actually knows what it is that you need. Because we cannot see our truth from within our filters. If we could, we would have made the transformation on our own. Okay, we can't see the thing that's keeping us stuck from within the filters we've built up. We need someone outside of ourselves to be able to help reveal that to us. So step 4, when we surrender to the knowing that we don't know, right? This isn't about giving our power over to someone else, okay? You are empowered in this whole process. A lot of times people go, I give up, help me, give me the answer, but that's not surrender. Surrender is simply saying, I get that the way I've been seeing it hasn't gotten me the result, and I'm open to seeing it in a new way. That's surrender. Okay. And when we do this, when we are in this state of surrender, of willingness to see something new, then step 5 is truth. Step 5 is truth. This is where we are willing to see a new truth. So in my example of, wanting to start a business, and then having stuff happen, this is where it can often get messy, that caused me to surrender, right? Being divorced and losing my stepdad caused me to be in a state of surrender, to go, I don't know why this is happening. I don't know how I got here, but I'm willing to see something different. And it was only in that space that I was willing to see the truth about what was going on for me and my belief system and my energy field that actually had me create that situation. See, being someone who just handled everything for other people, for everyone, because I just had it all together and I just handled things, of course I attracted in a partner who wasn't capable of handling things, right? And was more than willing to put it all onto me. I did that. Before I got to surrender, I couldn't see that. I kind of got it intellectually, like, oh, I'm, paying for everything, for example. I got that intellectually, but I couldn't really see and take ownership of who I was being that actually disempowered the people in my life. It was only through this surrender experience that I actually started to get that new awareness. Okay. So the next step after we see our new truth is the most important step when you're a coach or a leader of transformation. And that step is validation. So we see our new truth and we must validate ourselves in that truth. So a lot of times the new truth isn't pleasant, right? It wasn't pleasant to see how I'd been being someone who disempowered people in my life through my I got this all together kind of energy. It wasn't pleasant to see that. And so it can be really easy then to go into blaming or shaming the new truth. Like, oh, what a jerk I was, right? Or, wow, what kind of person would do this? This is horrible. If you're in blame or shame, that is not going to create transformation, okay? It's just going to embed that pattern even more. What we resist persists, right? So we've got to take it out, put it on the table, this idea, like, so for me, of disempowering people, and we've got to validate it, okay? So we've got to really, and that can be like, and this is why retreats are so powerful, by the way. You share something and other people in the room still love you. Other people in the room go, oh, yeah, me too. Oh, yeah, I've had this experience myself, or I relate to that. Or, you know what? Even though you've been going through life being like super arrogant, I still love you. And with that, we can really accept ourselves, right? We can validate ourselves. We can be with that new part of ourselves, and it no longer has a hold on us. So this piece of validation is key, okay? I have a process that I teach my retreat leaders for validation that really allows people to see that, yeah, maybe as an adult, this is a pattern that is not serving you. It's not an adult-like pattern to have. But you created this pattern for most of the things that we transform before you were 7 years old, okay? Before that your conscious mind was developed. So we can bring a lot of compassion to, of course you created this feeling, right? For me, growing up as a kid, my life wasn't very safe. I was exposed to a lot of things that were very unsafe. I had a lot of violations happen to me as a kid. I didn't have a lot of say in the matter. And so I developed this way of taking charge of things to make me feel like I was in control. And then that worked for me, right? So I kept carrying that forward in life until it stopped working. And a lot of times it's the breakdown that has the thing stop working. So we can love ourselves through it and really validate that, God, that was a totally normal thing that I created as a kid. And whatever your version of that is, it was a totally normal thing. And we can love it, right? We can be with it with love and acceptance. And when we release the judgment of that, when we can really validate that we're normal and we're not, it's not shameful that we have this pattern, now it can dissipate. Now we can let it go. Now we can create something new from this clear space. So when we validate this new truth and we really receive, this is a part of me and I'm not resisting it and I love it up and it's awesome. Now we have the space to create something new. We can say, hey, we no longer need that old thing. If I no longer had to have it all together and be smart and take care of everything, what would that make available? What would that make available? For me, in my example, it was two things. One was, it made available for me to put myself first. I literally created the possibility of being selfish. That's what I called it. So really being willing to put myself first and nurture myself and ask for what I need and receive support for me, rather than being the one to hold it all together. And the second thing was, I actually created a new possibility of it being okay that I fail, that I could make a mistake, that I could be vulnerable and human, and that could be actually okay. Now, I now know that that's actually like attractive and magnetic and endearing, but at the time, I just wanted to survive, right? And it was like, I can fail and I can live. And that was so freeing, right? So I created the possibility of being selfish and really the possibility of being human, right? Or of being a failure. And those two things created all this freedom for me. And that's step 7, is to create a new possibility. So this whole piece of the shift starts with surrender, and then seeing your new truth, having it validated, and creating a new possibility. And then the last step of the shift is to actually give yourself a new experience where you get to experience yourself as this new possibility. So step 8 is experience. And what does that look like? That looks like actually being selfish, or actually broadcasting my failure, right? Like just really being okay with that this is where my life is, and speaking about it. So for me, I created a whole week where I practiced being selfish, and it felt like I would die, right? Because when we create transformation, a piece of our old egoic pattern or our old identity is literally falling away, and it can feel like death. So the idea of saying no to someone who invited me to something that previously I would have said yes to because it would make them feel good, and I would say no. And that was being selfish for me, and it felt like death. It was very challenging. And I practiced just for a week. And then, of course, that new possibility becomes part of who you have access to in life. Like, it became okay for me to ask for support and put myself first. And so step 8 is experience the new possibility. And that whole piece is the shift, okay? So we've got commit, and then you go through this process of actually shifting and experiencing the new shift. And then the final stage, and by the way, this is what happens at a really expertly led retreat, is each individual in the retreat is on their own timing. They're in their own place between surrender and truth and validation, etc. And you're kind of moving the whole thing forward for the collective room while each individual is in its own place. So you can see how really understanding this process will help you to be a great leader and know where each person is in the room. So step 9, then, these final 2 stages have to do with really embodying the transformation and creating flow in your life. So this 3rd stage is all around creating flow. So step 9 is actually integrating the new possibility into your life. So once you get to experience, like, for example, it's safe to put myself first. No one's going to die. It's okay. I can do it. Then you have to go look in your life and say, how do I integrate this new possibility into all the areas of my life? Where am I, what do I need to change in terms of my commitments, in terms of my schedule, my calendar, my visibility, the way I'm showing up in the world, who my friends are, who I'm in relationship with, my physical environment? What needs to shift to reflect this new possibility back to me, to make it easier for me to go through life being in this new way? That's the integrate stage. That's stage 9. And this is why I'm such an advocate in the way I design my offerings, and then the way I teach my clients to design their offerings, of having a high-level program or a high-level container of support, I call it, for your clients as they're integrating their new possibility. So let's say you work as a weight loss coach, okay? And even though there's lots of obvious things people need to do to lose weight, like exercise more, eat less, eat the right foods for their body type, whatever, your modality is or your approach is, they really need to be in a place where they're willing to do that. So all of the, diet books in the world don't create transformation. It's this process that creates transformation. So imagine you have a retreat or you work with a client one-on-one through this process, and they really get present to the reason that they've created this weight buffer in the first place, right? And they become willing to let it go, and they create a new possibility of who they get to be on the other side of their weight loss. And they start to experience themselves as that person. I had a client recently in a retreat create the possibility of being smoking hot. So you would imagine smoking hot is going to approach weight loss in a different way than I feel really shitty about myself would approach weight loss, right? So when they're in the new possibility, now they go integrate that into their life. Now they have a reason, a purpose. They're connected to their why for clearing out their pantry or their closet, okay? So that's the integrate stage. And here's the thing we need to know about transformation, and this is so important. This is why I'm on a mission to normalize transformation, is because when your client goes out into their life, and you've probably seen this, and starts to be different, what are they going to be met with? They're going to be met with resistance, because their environment, the people in their lives, even though they love them and are supportive and want what's best and all of that, deep down, they don't want them to actually make change. Because if one person makes change, by ripple effect, other people have to look within and they may have to make changes themselves. So even though we love one another, we are more committed to the people in our lives staying the same than we are to them growing. This is why I want everyone to understand this, how transformation works, so that when someone's in their process of growth, when they're in a new possibility, we are gracious and supportive and able to go, you know what? It's really inconvenient for me that you've started being selfish right now, but I get it. I get it. I appreciate it. I love it. And I support you in the journey. Okay. Mostly today, that doesn't happen. Mostly when someone starts to shift and grow and be different, the people in their life get scared. They contract their energy because they're afraid this person is going to outgrow them and leave them behind. And so they start to sabotage, right? So the integrate stage is huge. Having a coach or a mentor, a community of support as you begin to grow and flex these new muscles and do new things and operate in new ways is hugely supportive. And the faster you can go integrate the new possibility into your environment, the more successful you'll be at moving into stage 10, which stage 10 is the enjoy stage. So step 10. So step 10 is enjoy. This is where you're in the new possibility. Your life is reflecting who you now are, and you are just a magnet for all the things that align with that new possibility. You are receiving, you're supported, you're having flow, you're having new clients show up, you're raising your prices and people are delightedly paying it, you're getting surprise referrals, opportunities are coming to you that never would have come to you in the old energy you were in or the old awareness. You wouldn't have even been open to them. Right? So for example, if I'm in an energy of, I got it together and I've got this, right? Just, I don't need anyone or anything. I've got this. In that energy, I wouldn't even notice opportunities where people wanted to send me clients or send me support or whatever, right? And in the new possibility, I really can start to see that. Right? Of like really being okay, not having it all together and really being willing to put myself first and receive support from others. Now, all of a sudden, I can see different possibilities out there in the world, right? And that creates flow. It creates momentum. It creates joy, and all of those things. So step 10 is really enjoying the fruits of your labor, right? You've done the deep work of transformation and you get in flow. And you can stay in flow, for different lengths of time, depending on you and your circumstance and where you are and what you're accomplishing. And then eventually you'll cycle back to some discomfort again, right? You'll start to decide you're going to peel back another layer of the onion and grow further, and you'll get back into discomfort. And we can judge that too, right? I have all of these amazing things. Why am I not happy? Because as humans, we are programmed for more life. We're programmed to keep growing, right? We're never programmed to stop. It's just not who we are in our DNA. And so, of course, we're going to become back in discomfort again. But the great news is we don't have to stay there because we know how to move through this process and to get back into flow. And for me, the best way is to put myself on retreat. I've created so many shifts and growths myself through being a retreat attendee and also through being the leader of a retreat, because the retreat is the perfect container for this shift stage, right? To really surrender and see the new truth, have it validated, and create this new possibility and experience it all in one weekend. It's an amazing thing. So I highly recommend small retreats. I highly recommend checking out my retreat leaders on my website. We have our own retreats, and we also have amazingly trained clients who lead deep transformational work. So check us out at alignedentrepreneurs.com/retreats. I'm curious about what's really stood out for you here. I could talk about this topic forever. I have so many stories and examples of people moving through the anatomy of a transformation and just creating like such outcomes in their life. We'll continue to talk about this in future episodes. I'll share stories and examples, but I really wanted to share with you the foundation of this work of transformation. So you have this anchor to go back to. And even as you're interacting with friends and family in your life, you can use it to tune in and go, hey, how can I support the people in my life in creating transformation? And really the main thing that I see with that is, how do I tune in and really get when someone's committed to their transformation? Because until they are, there's no point in engaging in helpful conversations. Honestly, your whole goal at that point is to help frame up why they might want to commit to making change. And until they do, give your substance where it can do most good. I'm Darla LeDoux. I'm the founder of Aligned Entrepreneurs. I'm the author of Retreat and Grow Rich. And this has been awesome sharing with you. Please share your comments, your insights, what you'd like to hear in future episodes, and I'll see you soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Retreat and Grow Rich, the podcast. If so, please share your experience and spread the word. Also, please subscribe over on iTunes and leave us a fabulous review. It makes a big difference in helping to get the word out. And you can join me in my mission to normalize transformation on the planet, one intimate retreat at a time. You can find show notes from this and all of our episodes over at alignedentrepreneurs.com/podcast. If you'd like to understand the inner workings of my retreat-based business model and build your confidence in your retreat dreams, you can grab my book, Retreat and Grow Rich, over on Amazon. It's the entrepreneur's guide to powerful, profitable retreats. If you've been wanting to incorporate transformational retreats into your fabulous business model, but you're not quite sure where to start, hop on over to retreatleaderquiz.com. In this short 10-question quiz, you will receive your personalized results, one of 6 retreat leader archetypes that will show you what your strengths are as a retreat leader, the pitfalls to look out for, and even give you a sample agenda that you can take and make your own. Again, that's at retreatleaderquiz.com.